In this video, I'm going to show you how pages are created and data is stored in Kirby's content structure. As you might have seen, Kirby is not a traditional content management system with a database running in the background, so there is no MySQL server or anything like that. Kirby is a file-based system, and everything that you see in your browser in the end is coming from text files and folders. For this video, I've installed the Plainkit, which is our most basic starting kit boilerplate. So you don't get any dummy content or any theming in this kit. And it's perfect to explain what I'm going to talk about. So we have this content folder here, and this is our database, if you want to say it like this. So this is where all the pages are stored and where all the information for the pages is stored. And you can see when you download the Plainkit, you already get an error and a home folder. So those two folders are folders that Kirby expects from your installation. It somehow needs to know where data is coming from for the error page. So whenever you visit some path on your site that doesn't exist, it somehow needs to know what to put in the title. Maybe you have some additional text in there later. So this is coming from the error folder. And of course, if you don't put in any path, it also has to know where the data for the home page comes from. And this is originally loaded from the home folder. You can also see that each of those folders already has a text file, and we get to that in a second. And there's also this site.txt, which we also will be talking about a bit later. So in order to create our very first page, what we can do now is we can create just another subfolder of the content folder. For this video, I'm going to pretend that we are an ad agency. And we are like this typical agency that wants to show off their projects, that might be telling a bit more about their team and their philosophy, maybe their work process, wants to show a way how to get in contact with them. So yeah, quite traditional website architecture. So, and we are going to start with the projects in this case. So we create a projects folder, and that's already it. So we already created our very first page in Kirby called projects. And we can now go to that page. And you can see Kirby picks it up. It no longer lands on an error page. It recognizes that page. And it also took the folder name, which is projects, and assumed that this is the title for now because we didn't add a text file for it so far, and we didn't put in a real title yet. I'm going to open the content folder now in my code editor because it has a bit easier way to add new files and folders. Here we go. So you can see those are the folders that we just added, and we can now add our very first text file to our new projects folder called projects.txt. And now we can enter our title here for this page. So title is the only field that Kirby really recognizes as a standard. The other fields are completely free, but yeah, title is something that Kirby recognizes and picks up for you. So, and this is how we add such a title field. We enter the name, title, and then a colon, and then afterwards we can put in the value or the content for our title field, which would be just projects. Not very exciting, but you get the idea. So this is how we created the very first field, added a text to that field, and now Kirby will recognize that and use that instead of the folder name. By using the folder name as a default, you can just map out the entire hierarchy of your site really quickly without having to add those text files right from the start, which is super useful in some cases. So we created our projects, but now we can go on and create more pages. Let's do that in code again. So let's say we want to create a team page with a team.txt, and again, let's call it team. Then we probably also might want to have a contact page with a contact.txt. And let's say we also plan to create a blog. I put some updates in there. Okay, so now we created a couple pages and we can visit them all, of course. So if we go back to the browser, we can now manually go there. And in our Plainkit, as you can see, that the theme is really minimal, and that's intentional. So we don't have to remove any fluff that we don't want to work with. So we don't have any navigation so far. We just have the title, and I have to manually add all the paths for each individual page. But you get the point how easy it is to create those pages now. But we are not just able to create pages on one level. Of course, we can also nest them. And especially for projects or for the blog, this comes in handy quickly. So we want to add our very first project. And we do this by creating a subfolder. Let's call it Hello World. And let's say we call this project.txt. And now we enter our title, Hello World. Nice. So we just created our very first project, which is of course super exciting. And now we can go there, go to the projects page, and then we can go to the Hello World project. And as you see, it automatically reflects what we just created. So we have a subfolder of projects, and that is also reflected in the URL. So we have a very easy way of creating nice, beautiful URLs for each project. And of course, we could do this nesting stuff even more deeply and go one level down or even multiple levels down. So there is hardly any limit other than the file system limit, which is just far beyond what you would ever want to build on a web project. And what I like about this so much is that it's super easy to create even very complex tree structures for your site like this, and just in a matter of seconds, and with your favorite code editor or within Finder or Windows Explorer. So it's really fast and easy to do and to map out the structure of your site. And in Kirby, we store all the additional fields that we want to store for each page in that text files. And this is what I want to show you now. So if we go back to our project.txt, so far we only have the title. Let me close all this stuff here. So we only have the title so far, but for the project we want to store more information. This would be next. Normally you would start with the structure and the architecture first. You would map out everything with folders, and then from there on you would start to fill in information for each individual page. So in this case, what we want to do is we want to create an additional field and maybe have some intro text for this project. Maybe we have an overview of projects later where we can use this intro, or maybe we have a really nice design for each individual intro project page and have the intro text like nice and big up on front or at the top of the page. So it's totally up to you how you design this in the end. So this was awesome. And you already see how easy it is to create additional fields. So what I did is I put in a separator, which is 4 dashes, and then I created a new field, and we can repeat this over and over again. So let's say there would be some longer form text and then more, and then maybe we have a year if I can type. I probably can't. And then maybe we want to add a category, like this is an editorial project. We could add in a client name, maybe some credits, etc., etc. So you can already see how easy it is to add a lot of fields to such a page. And this is important because it helps you to keep your content clean. It helps you to separate stuff and be able to reuse it later on in your templates, and have very fine-grained control over how you work with those fields, how you design them, how you put the markup around them. And what's also important is that Kirby doesn't have a fixed structure for those fields. So by adding those fields to this project, we don't really necessarily say that the next project has to have the same fields. So maybe there's no year available for that project because it was an ongoing thing, or maybe there's no client yet, or we don't have any credits for that project, etc. So you are completely free to change those fields, or maybe add more fields to the next project because it's something else. This is like the typical stuff that happens in client projects. You work on it and then suddenly a new requirement comes along, and this makes it very easy to handle those additional requirements that come in later. It's also not giving you a fixed structure to have the same fields for all types of pages. So for example, if we have a look at blog articles, they would have completely different sets of fields, something like a date or a featured flag, or like a longer intro text or something like this. So you are not stuck with one particular structure of fields for every page that you create. And this is really cool. So we created some text, some information, and we could fill this up now entirely for the entire content folder. We are not going to do this for the sake of keeping this demo short. But what I want to show you next is the way that we now would go on and store additional images or PDFs or spreadsheets for such a project. Let's say we are an architecture bureau, and we probably also have some plans for each project that you could download as a PDF, or maybe we have some spreadsheets or other interesting stuff that could be downloaded. So we can store all of that within the page folder. Let me show you how to do this with a couple demo images. So let's just copy them over to our Hello World project. And this is how you would store images with each project. And of course, when you create the next project, you already have a very visual and easy to browse catalog of the things that you want to store with each project. So that is a very important part for Kirby, that the folder structure is always super readable. No matter how big it gets or how complicated it gets, it should always work for you as a human being. You could browse through this and instantly understand this. You could browse the fields and instantly read this, even if you rip it out of Kirby, and that is quite important to us. So ideally, even if you take it out of Kirby, it would be something that is still very helpful for you. I mentioned the text files for each individual page, what we just saw here, but I also mentioned the site.txt before, and this file is meant for data that is globally available, not just for one particular page, but it could appear on every page. So something like the site title. If we open this up, you will see it in an instant. So here have the site title, so we would probably put in the agency name here, and then we could put in more global data like a Twitter handle or something like an Instagram account. Maybe we have some text that we want to show in the footer on every page, then we could put it in here, maybe an address that should be globally available, just global data in general. And of course it follows the same logic that we've seen in the other text files, the same way to create fields, the same flexibility to create all kinds of fields that you need. So it's again very flexible in terms of what you want to enter there. And it's also possible to store global images in here. So if you have some images, maybe some background images or some header graphics or something comparable to that, that is not really doesn't really fit into a particular page, but is more globally available, then you could just put it in here and have that on the highest level, and then load it later wherever you need it. So everything that you see in the content folder is always available in your templates, so you can create nice galleries out of those images that we place there, or download links. And we will see that in later videos. but this is how it works. So this is how you get organized quickly. One last thing that I want to show you about how we can store information for each individual file that we've uploaded or image that we've uploaded, because often you want to create some additional alternative text, or maybe you have a longer caption for an image, or maybe you want to credit a photographer. You can of course also do that, and it works in a similar way. So we can duplicate this here, and then we can use the file name of our first image, put it in here, put the JPEG in here, and by reusing the file name of that first image and putting .txt behind it, it automatically gets connected with this image file here. So now we can open this up, remove all of this, and let's create some alternative texts and say, okay, this shows something. Yeah, I'm very creative. So we could put in some caption, we could have a photographer, maybe also store a license here. You get the idea. So the same way to create fields, the same flexibility to create multiple fields that don't necessarily have to be repeated between all the other images. So maybe an image has an alternative text, maybe the next one doesn't. This is how it can be stored for all the images. It's also open to have this file. If there's no file for such an image like this, it's not a problem. There's just no additional data attached to it. So we learned how to create pages, we learned how to upload or to add additional images and files. The next step would be, how can we apply some kind of sorting? Because oftentimes you don't just want to have things sorted alphabetically in such a hierarchy. You want to have more control over that. And this can be done by prepending sorting numbers. So we can do this by saying, okay, like projects is the most important one here. It should be first. And then maybe the team page is the second most important. And afterwards comes the blog. And last but not least, there's the contact page. And those shouldn't be sorted at all. They are more like miscellaneous pages that should appear, should probably not appear in a menu at all. And it's important when we want to sort pages that we follow that format. So you have like the sorting number in front, and then you put an underscore afterwards, and then comes the regular folder name. And by doing this or following this format, Kirby will recognize what is the folder name, what is the sorting number, and it will automatically strip out that sorting number when it comes to URLs, because that is something that you don't really want to have reflected in the URL. The sorting number is a weird choice to have up here. So we still want to be able to access our Hello World project without any weird sorting numbers in the URL, and Kirby will automatically do this for you. So this is really just for you internally to get an idea how things should be sorted. It gets more obvious when we talk about blog articles. So let's say we have like our first blog article, and then we have the second one. And now we want to put a date in front of that. And we can do this instantly with our sorting mechanism here as well. And then say, okay, this one, come on, should go second. And when you have more articles, you have still a very clean list of how those articles are sorted. So you can have date-based sorting or alphabetical sorting by just using the file system defaults, or you can have like this manual sorting. Maybe you also have like an ID sorting. When you have your own ID system, then you can use those IDs as sorting as a way of sorting as well. So this is a cool way of just having more control over the hierarchy in general. You've seen how flexible this is. You've seen how fast this is. It's super easy to put this in a zip file, send it to someone, put it into Dropbox, maybe put it into version control and put it on GitHub. And this is kind of the biggest advantage of this entire file-based architecture. So you are always in control of it, and it always feels super accessible and super easy to understand and to browse. And it makes it really nice to work with it. And it's also really cool to sync this between your local environment. If you have a local version of the website and you have the website on a server, it's really easy to sync this via FTP or rsync or like a more complex deployment process. And it's just a lot of fun to work with. And this entire folder structure like that we see here is something that you can just use like we just did, without even touching the Kirby's admin interface once. So many people do this and don't use the admin interface at all because they feel like very comfortable with this kind of way of working and just working in text files and their favorite editor. And of course, there are clients that can't really work like this and they need the interface. And Kirby's interface doesn't do anything different. So there is no second hidden weird layer. It does the same things. So it works with your folders and your files, and it renames them, and it changes the sorting numbers for you, and it uploads images and puts them in the right folders. So it does exactly the same things. And that means that you're always able to choose between both ways. So you can have the manual control, or you can have control over the admin interface, and everything can happen side by side. And that is also like a big plus. This is it. This is the little video about the content folder and how you structure content here. And I hope you liked it. It's the foundation for a lot of things that come afterwards. Next up would be how to connect this with your templates, how to work with all that data that we just entered and the different pages, and how to create navigation out of it, and how to work with those images and videos. So yeah, follow along the other videos that will come afterwards and just have fun with it. See you next time. Bye bye.